The next speaker is Dr. Ramesh Kumar, the President-elect from Indian Academy of Pediatrics, and he's going to talk to us on migrant and displaced children. Dr. Ramesh Kumar.
Good evening greetings from Indian Academy of Pediatrics. Respected Chair, Dr. Amar Sena, the President of South Asia Pediatric Association, my fellow speakers out here, Dr. Ganesh Kumar Rai, Dr. Mansoor Hussain, and respected dignitaries from the Sapa region, as well as my fellow colleagues from this part of the world. First of all, my regards and congratulations to the Sri Lankan College of Pediatrics on celebrating its 25th anniversary here. And it's my great privilege to represent Indian Academy of Pediatrics on this platform here today. My slides are visible, sir?
Yes.
Okay. So myself, there's Ramesh Kumar, the President-elect of Indian Academy of Pediatrics for the year 21. And I'll be just taking you through the problem of migrant and displaced children as it stands now in this part of the world, mostly in this across the globe. And the stats speaks the burden about this itself. What you can see, the people age 19 or under living in a country other than the one they were born. Just we see their asylum seekers or migrants. They rose from 29 million in 1990. In 3 decades, it has gone around another 11 million to 2020. Child migrants accounted for something around 14.6% of the total migrant population. That's around age 19 years and under. And as per UNICEF, maybe under 18 years, if you take it as a criteria, is something around 33 million in 2019. So somewhere around 30 to 40 million child migrants are around if the criteria as per the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs. So that's a huge burden. And the young migrants also rose from 22.1 million in 1990 to 31.7 million 2020. So it's always almost doubling by at least 50% every decade or so. That we have the United Nations Development and Economic stats are there. They started publishing their international migrant stock estimates in 1990. And it's interesting to see Africa has hosted the highest proportion of child migrants as well as young migrants. So it happens across the globe, and Africa should be hosting the highest proportion. There is something, in the nomenclature, you need to have a better understanding regarding migration. Of course, another term around is post-displacement. Migration is, of course, the International Organization for Migration. It defines as an umbrella term, wherein a person who moves away from his or a place of usual residence, whether within a country or across an international border, temporarily or permanently, could be for a variety of reasons. So all these encompasses migration. And at the international level, no universally accepted definition, but this is more or less accepted across for an adult. And this forced displacement is, on the contrary, something like a result of persecution, generalized violence, or human rights violations. And they start moving to escape the persecution. Conflicts may be there, repression is there. You see many parts of the world. We can see that the migration happening mostly due to a certain amount. Whatever be the perception, it is mostly due to some sort of unhappy settlements. It could be due to the persecutions mostly, or their poverty and other aspects. So basically, migration is not a new phenomenon. It is a history dating back to ancient times. Children have always migrated or following their families. Families might migrate first and children might follow them, or with the families. to pursue opportunities or to increase their safety away from home. So both ways. And so much of this type of migration is unproblematic. After a period of adjustment to a new context, most children, along with their families, they integrate into their new society. So this is a sort of maybe for a better living, and maybe always they settle comfortably in the new the areas, the new abodes, hopefully. But there's a growing concern. You must be very familiar with this photograph. It's very, very sad to see a child. The story of that Alan Kurdi was seen drowned in the beach, the Mediterranean beach. The photograph taken by a Kurdish photographer. He was a Kurdish refugee seeking refuge. Basically, moving. The family wanted to move to Canada, but then they went away. So this is you can see this. There is a lot of this is the recent attention is due to the current magnitude is on one side. Another factor galvanizing increased political and will and public concern is peculiarly the news, the compelling nature of child suffering coming along with that migration. The compelling, so that also gives them more public concern. So this is it's a story, and even the international outrage provoked by the United States, U.S. government's 2018 a southern border family separation policy with Mexico and other borders. So there are a lot of so these are all certain settings which has happened in the past, and there's a lot of increasing concern around this. So coming back to the migration, child migration is basically not usefully divided into forced or voluntary. It's not forced or voluntary, but then as adults maybe this classification may suit well. But child migration is rather viewed as a combination of elements of compulsion and choice, because they are basically determined by the parents or their caretakers. So because of the large variety of relevant situations, they are now commonly referred to as children on the move. It's not maybe because there are a lot of this multiple factors involved. This is a phrase that has the advantage of not precluding a transition from one migrant category to another. So that's the children on the move is the term better used for children when the migration is concerned, taken for children. Not definitely as an adult, you can definitely put it as one side as a voluntary for any better way of living, or a forced, as you say, persecution or other aspects. So some migration journeys are highly gendered also. This is also another aspect which should, as the custodians of child health and the gender neutrality and all aspects, we have advocacy in all fronts. The pediatric associations across the globe is taking up the gender equality. So the long-standing exploitative transportation maybe of Nigerian girls to Europe, or self-initiated migration of North African adolescent boys. So these are all gendered based journeys, migration scenarios. So particularly much child migration outside the context of child conflict or disaster is safe and undertaken as a part of family unit is well and fine. There are certain inherent risks out here. Is life-threatening forced migrations. We can see they are involved. That jeopardizes their safety and violates their rights. The Eastern and Central Mediterranean, where drownings are frequent, as we have seen the Alan Kurdi, that sad story in 2015. It has amply exemplified how much the treacherous are the migration routes. So migrations are usually they are more exposed to physical or sexual violence once they reach their destination or the presumed destinations. Then they may be exposed to sexual violence. And there are also another aspect: the exploitative intermediaries are there. They take advantage of the need for migration. So that's something which we definitely has to look for. The governments and the government agencies, as well as those who the child pediatric associations, all those, we need to be concerned more about these exploiting intermediaries who promise a big and then they just leave them in the ditch. So that leaves the children along with their families in the dark. And children migrating alone is over the years it has been seen a little increase because previously the story was children used to migrate with their families, but this is a little alarming to see that there are 2015-16 5 times as many children migrated as compared to around 5 years back. This is UNICEF data. Maybe so that's a little 5 times more children migrated on their own, maybe in a span of 5 years. So this is another data from UNICEF. All these are showing that children migrating alone, that in the European Union 19,000 and in other parts they went missing during their migration journey. So this itself is another important concern. They are migrating alone. And impacts of unsafe migration, particularly the policies that separate parents and children at borders, there'll be some deportation proceedings will be there. Their purpose may not be appropriate, and there'll be some round of protracted administrative procedures that prevent children from reunifying with parents for years. So naturally, this can be devastating, of course, for the health and well-being of these children. So these are all, I think, some impacts. These are all anticipated impacts. This is nothing different here. When they are bound to be separated from their parents for so many reasons. So educational shortcomings in refugee camps, because naturally they will be accommodated in refugee camps, and state inaction in the face of evidence of migrant sexual exploitation, then unmet physical and mental health needs. These are all going to be there. And what exactly are the key child protection challenges here? Basically, it's education. Education means states, they are mandated to provide education, but certain situations come where the resources are lacking or resources are scanty. There, the outsiders or who are the refugees, they are being privileged, can generate, they are giving better, the governments take care of them better. That can generate naturally acute resentment towards the newcomers. So this is happening in many parts of the world. So unless investment has to target the domestic population in need, and if their requirements are also met with, this kind of resentments can be reduced to a good extent. So whenever the government or the nation undertakes a decision to accept refugees, they should be in a position to guard the interest of their own native domestic population equally. Otherwise, this is bound to come up, and that may balloon up to the other challenges later. So that's another aspect. And another concern is the guardianship. Some state services such as education, they are essential for migrant children. And only a minority of states have incorporated this recommendation, the domestic legal obligation. So this is a guardianship is another aspect. And while the majority of children who migrate do so through safe migration process, many other child migrants, they do not. So the guardianship, of course, may be not taken care properly. So the key priorities here are the risk of exploitation, abuse, negative impact of detention, the effect of family separation. These things have to be, these are all the challenges definitely which has to be addressed appropriately for the migration to be more safe and easy. So absence of the adequate legal pathways are also there, and the deficits in access to guardianship, legal representation for unaccompanied and separated child migrants. These are all, you name anything, the asylum seekers are in for multiple issues. So these are especially education, guardianship, their health and other issues, and child sexual abuse. These are things which has to be addressed. So before you wind up, let's look at some international initiatives on this front. UNICEF was as being the prime stakeholder on the child health. They consolidated this as a 6-point plan to keep refugee and migrant children safe in 2017. And apart from that, there was something like a New York Declaration, 2016. They issued a landmark statement, the New York Declaration for Refugees and Migrants, the launch of 2 non-binding global compact process. It stated that we will protect the human rights and fundamental freedoms of all refugee and migrant children, regardless of their status, giving primary consideration at all times to the best interest of the child. This will apply particularly to unaccompanied children and those separated from their families. Now, this was the United Nations General Assembly's statement in 2016. So that shows how much the international custodian of the out there are bound to are concerned about the migration and the refugees. All said and done, this is not an easy task. We need to bring all the administrations across the globe into this format or into accepting this. There may, of course, the political will be there, but is to be made operational. It may require a much larger initiatives. So the SDG on migration has mentioned that this is at SDG target 10.7 calls on states to facilitate orderly, safe, responsible migration and mobility of people, including thorough implementation of planned and well-managed migration policies. So wherever it's to happen, wherever it may happen or anticipated, or of course as a contingency, the concerned stakeholders have to facilitate orderly, safe and responsible migration and need to take care of the migrant and ultimately the displaced children, their rights, their health and their education and all other aspects. Friends, thank you very much. That was I love to share my thoughts on this migrant and displaced children. But one fun thing, unfortunate out here is COVID has not made much difference to the migration across, because COVID has limited the movements, and this is something which aspect where COVID has not had is much of an impact out here on this. Of course, it is there, but not on a significant level compared to other aspects of human health. Thank you very much, sirs, for the opportunity to represent Indian Academy of Pediatrics out here with you on this platform. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ramesh.